Welcome, everyone. We're winding up our last Wednesday of the month for the November of 2025. I can't believe we have a month and then it'll be 2026. It's just insane.
It
But
is.
Troy Love is joining me today. It's the day before Thanksgiving for those in the US. And so we are hopeful that people are prepared and taking a lot of self-care for the holidays. If you're navigating these issues, these situations, extra self-care as you enter the holidays and are around people and every have a plan. But we're here today, and Troy, any thoughts as we have a question, but any thoughts as we prepare?
No, I mean, I I was scheduling some appointments for clients and I'm like, "Oh, our next appointment is December 3rd." I was like, "What? How how is that even possible?" Seems like just yesterday it was last Christmas.
I
But
know, and it does go very quickly. But I was also thinking, I saw your picture on the screen, and I was thinking, uh, and I also picked up one of my sobriety chips, and it was a nice number. And but I was thinking a lot about transformation. And, you, my friend, have transformed this year, and
oh, I have.
yes,
Thank you.
yes, you have, yes, in a physical way. You've always been transforming in a,
Thank you.
in our personal growth way, but you have transformed. But like I was thinking how important it is to have the opportunity to transform and be willing to take to do this necessary steps to do so. So
Well, thank
um, and I think, as we look at these holidays, we could kind of see those markers. That was my point, is like, oh, there's another marker of, like, we can look at, how things have shifted and changed, and there's always, loss and grief and things like that along our paths, but there's also the opportunity, for healing and growth.
well, thank you first for noticing that. Yeah, it's I've always had this thought process like about support and I'm just gonna wing what I'm saying, but like when somebody has cancer, for example, everybody comes around and they make meals and they're there and they're supportive. But when people are struggling with invisible wounds, invisible cancers that are really hard to talk about, um, the support is harder to reach out to. So when we see something or we know something that's there, it's easier, I think, for people to show up. At the same time, it's also hard to see our own recovery. Like if I had cancer and I know that my date of remission was this date, I can look back and all that. You just got a chip, so you have a date of sobriety where you can like, look, I've accomplished that. Um, those are measurable, but some of the other things are not as measurable. So for me, I look at some pictures of me last year. I've lost 65 pounds
I
since.
didn't know the number, but like it's noticeable. So
And I didn't think I looked that bad last year, but I look at the pictures, I'm like, wow. And then my judge has lots of not kind things to say about my pictures. Um, so it's a wonderful feeling to be able to look in the mirror and see change, but I also can like there's still the shame of who I was before and why wasn't I healthy before, and the judge says a lot of not so kind things about the past, which isn't helpful. And I can't go back and change any of that. And so it's a reminder to continue to be kind to myself, to appreciate and be grateful for the progress today. Um, and that is visible. Like I can see the visible change, but there's a lot of invisible changes that we've made in recovery. Maybe we're a little kinder. Maybe we are a little bit more patient. Maybe we have learned how to to manage anxiety a little bit better. And those are not visible, but they are definitely things that we can be kind about ourselves and express gratitude for, and the support of people who've been there with us, our higher power, and ourselves, that we showed up for ourselves. So hopefully we can remind ourselves of that this season.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that there's shame for you. I always think we're not willing until we're willing, and
Right.
and in when after I got sober, I had the weight loss journey to contend with, and when I was willing, I was willing. As an addict, I have to be super careful about, where that goes to for me because I can go way off the deep end with anything. And so having a healthy perspective of like this is my journey and I'm willing and I wasn't willing a year ago or whatever it was, I was sharing with somebody in a meeting because they were like, I should have, I
Right.
should have been here before, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, you weren't willing until you are willing. I mean, that's our
Yep.
journey. When we're willing, then we can show up and do the work. So I'm just grateful that you're in a healthy place. That's all. That's my
Me
point is
too.
you're in a healthy
Yeah, thank
place.
you.
So yeah.
Thank you. I'm
Okay.
happy.
So we have someone. Good morning. Dean is here. Troy, could you please remind me of the difference between guilt and shame and what the pros and cons are of each?
Yes. So um I'll start with shame. Shame comes from messages outside of ourselves, from our parents, from the media, from movies, from all kinds of places. Like we could point lots of fingers, but it comes from all kinds of places, but it's outside of ourselves that basically is saying that we need to be a certain way, whatever that way is, skinnier, prettier, whatever. And if we're not, that there's something wrong with us. And then we internalize that. And then we believe then that there's something wrong with me. So shame is this deep and abiding feeling and thought process that I'm flawed and defective and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. And that's the key part that comes from Brene Brown. And because I'm flawed and defective, I am therefore unworthy of love and connection. So that's really the biggest piece. I can admit I'm flawed and defective, but that doesn't mean that I'm experiencing shame. Like how it becomes shame based is if and therefore I'm unworthy of love. Therefore I can't connect with people. So the challenge with shame is it becomes part of my identity. I am flawed, I am broken, I am screwed up. And with that, there's not a whole lot I can do about that. I because it's just me. Like I've just come to this place where it's just me, and I'm horrible and I'm defeated, and the way that I've helped people manage that is through the shadows of shame and being able to break that shame down into smaller pieces and have dialogue with it. But the overall piece of it is that I'm flawed and there's something wrong with me. Guilt is I use some other words to in synonym with guilt is like humility. Um, in like a spiritual language, like godly sorrow. Um, if you like have a higher power type of thing, like I'm sad that the choices that I've made have impacted me or have impacted people around me. I'm sad about that. I don't like that. I know that it's caused harm and I want to change that. I want to make it different. I want to repair the breach. I want to make new choices in my life. And so I'm sad. I feel guilty that what I've done has caused harm. And I'm sorry. And I really do want to change. And the difference with that is that in that I'm not identifying that I'm a horrible person, that I'm awful, that I'm I'm no good, in fact, I'm not making it about me at all. I'm able to own that my behaviors, what I did, but I'm really seeing that it impacted other people. So humility, guilt, godly sorrow, like I'm feeling this feeling that, um, I've hurt God's children in that process. And the research shows that when we are feeling guilty, that's actually a really healthy emotion to feel because it helps us create space where we can make amends, we can repair, we can change and do things. Shame, not so much. Um, there used to be a term early on. John Bradshaw called it healthy shame, and the research shows that there's not really such a thing as healthy shame. Um, the way that we can redefine it is handling shame in a healthy way. I think that's what he was trying to say. Like, if I'm feeling shame, let me learn how to handle that in a healthy way. And oftentimes that's moving it from shame to guilt, and not making it about me. So, the pros of guilt is that it creates an environment where we can change. I don't really see that there's a whole lot of cons with that. That there's not a whole lot of pros of shame. Like it dismantles connection. It dismantles our ability to take ownership. So I don't see there's a whole lot of pros about shame.
So, Dr. Rob, and we have clients that come to the residential treatment program, and they'll be talking about the impact that it's had on loved ones, and they'll go into the, oh, I'm so horrible, and it's self-serving, it's self-centered, oh, I'm so bad, because the focus is still on me rather than on, wow, look at what my behaviors have done to me and everyone else. And so I think the other thing with shame is, you get to be really small. You're not, you're unable to think about other people because you're all wrapped up in yourself. And it also keeps you stuck, like shame really keeps you stuck in the same patterns that are, self-defeating and keep you isolated from other people as well. So yes, I do appreciate that, uh, with your language of how we unpack all of this, we can go, oh, wait, those voices they're there to serve me. They've served me in the past, and I can, thank them. And then I can go, and now I'm going to use, my newfound way of coping with things and looking at things and move forward in a different direction. We don't have to stay stuck.
No.
Okay, betrayer, 5 years into recovery. I was on the hot seat with Troy and was able to accept love, acceptance. Oh, I basked in the feeling of love, but it disappeared over time. How do I hold that feeling? How do I keep the door of self-acceptance open or throw it wide open? I love that you're talking about this because that's welcome to the journey. Troy, what are your thoughts?
Thank you. That's a beautiful question.
Yeah.
Uh, so we didn't have time that day to be able to do that with you. But when I'm working with clients and we connect with that feeling, I will say, okay, what can we do to hold on to this feeling? How can we connect it with like your five senses, like your sight, sound, touch? Like, what can we do to connect with that so it's easier to 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 hold on to that? What can we do to like cognitively write it down? Like, what was the new truth that you discovered, and where can I remind myself of that? But you're not wrong. It does go away, right? Being able to hold onto that for a long time is challenging. So that's why it becomes a practice that we do on a regular basis, right? So some people will use those positive affirmations, and I'm going to remind myself every day of what that felt like. If I'm really struggling with that, I might reach out to somebody and help them recreate the environment where I felt loved and accepted. Um, you mentioned the hot seat where we have the men's group on Fridays at 9 at Pacific. Like, if you come and you're letting and another guy's in the healing seat and he's feeling that, that he's doing your work for you. And so you can use that as a moment to reconnect with that feeling inside of yourself. Over time, it becomes easier. Like as we're going through our day-to-day life, and we're still battling shame, shame's going to suck all of that right out the window and just make it not great. So we have to learn how to become resilient and practice and be kind to other people. Um, and it and it and it's something we do regularly. So you can listen to meditations. Um, I think I have some that I'll send to Tammy. She can put a link. They're free. Like you can listen to those kind of things. But there's lots of things we can do to reconnect with that when we lose it.
Post-it notes around my bathroom mirror. I can't tell you and I don't have any right now, which is interesting, and that's probably a good thing, or shows progress. But it's like I live by post-it notes affirming. Like I had to have good messages. I do a meditation every morning, and like that's how I start my day. And though anything that I'm doing that is positive, but I'll tell you what, Troy's um helping me understand, oh, the voices of shame and like who's showing up. And I'm pretty quick now with being able to identify what that voice is. I can even pinpoint whose voice it really is, and go, oh yeah, that I hear that, and that's not true. And but I understand why why that's showing up right now, and here's how I'm going to move forward in a different way. Having the ability to hit, pause on that is huge, for me. So when though, like the feeling and intensity, I mean, it's always like one of those, oh, I want to hang on to this forever, and that's just not. But being able to reflect back on, I remember when I was in the hot seat and I had that feeling, and it felt so warm and cozy, and I felt so wrapped up in a blanket of love. Great. And even just having that mental image and going like, I'm going to lean into that right now. I'm going to sit here and be thinking of just that, and that can help tap back into it. But know that on this journey, the more work you're doing, the more you'll be able to be in that rather than in the shame bucket. So, okay, thanks for sharing that link. Okay, so the next one. I'm a betrayer 2 years from D-Day. I try to attend every Friday. In those meetings, we work through shadows, not managers, firefighters, and exiles like in IFS. What's the difference between your methods and IFS?
So there's a lot of overlap between IFS and the finding peace work. The biggest difference that I would say is that in IFS, they identify that they're parts of you, right? So the firefighter, the managers, the exiles, they're all parts of you. And the way that I conceptualize the shadows of shame is that they are not you at all. They're actually external messages that I've internalized. Um, and so, in order to help me deal with them, I'm going to take them outside of myself and imagine that they are actually like entities that I'm having a conversation with. This process is similar to what you would do in IFS, like you're having a conversation with a child part of you, or a manager part of you. So that process is the same. The biggest difference is just kind of the way that I conceptualize the shadows. But there's definitely an overlap. So a lot of people who are familiar with IFS, like my buddy Joe Zavedra, who's hosted some drop-in groups before. He loves IFS, and he also loves finding peace. That they fit together. I don't really get upset. I don't get all that bothered if somebody's calling them a firefighter or an ex. If it works for you, that's wonderful. That's the biggest difference. Is the shadows are not you. You are a being of light and love, and you are worthy of love and belonging, whether you recognize that or not. And the shadows have just been trying to minimize that in order to cope with your pain.
Another another lens that we use is inner child and Dr. Eddie Caparucci. So both Troy and Dr. Eddie have work groups on our site, and I recommend people do both. It's not like do one or the other, do both, because I think, just that kind of overall way of looking at different things and being able to identify. And like you said, Troy, it's like what works best for you. With the inner, or I mean, with the IFS, addicts are so compartmentalized. My only concern with that one is that people will stay in the compartmentalization. So having it be external, and like this is, the voices of shame, from external rather than I get to go to my compartmentalization. So I think it's one of those things, just be aware of, like, does that does that get you out of your compartmentalization? Fantastic. That would be the goal. We, in recovery, we strive to be one congruent person, not all of these compartmentalized pieces. So bringing all of those pieces together, is important. So, okay. Being kind to myself is hard. If you run out of stuff to talk about more practical steps to being kind to yourself. And yes, it is. So,
So Kristen Neff is like this self-compassion guru. If you go to her website, self-compassion.org, she has a ton of free resources that you can download. I think she has like 8 or 9 different activities that you can do that are free.
she also has some, I think, ongoing group things too.
I
So,
think
because I
she
looked
does.
her up, and yeah, so you can go check out her website and see if something's a fit to participate in.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways. Writing a letter to yourself, thinking about what I say, the kind of things to myself that my shadow say to me that I would say to a loved one. How could I say that differently? The self-compassion moment where we honor our wound, and then we give it a little bit of love and kindness. Those are all different ways to do it. I think the biggest step is, or the first step is, to recognize that I'm not being kind to myself, that I am not saying, I'm not doing things to be kind to myself that I would do to somebody else. Um, and recognizing that. And that can look in so many different ways. Like in my addictive stuff, like my last drug of addiction was a number 5 with bacon and a large Coke Zero, which I haven't had since March. Yeah, I'll tell you. And knowing that that's not kind to myself. Like there are still days I'm like, I would just really love to go have a hamburger right now. And I'm like, it's not that hamburgers are bad. It's just like that's not good for me. And I've done it for 6 or 7 months now. I need to be kind to myself, find another way to do that, because that's a way of not being kind to myself. So uh, part of that is just taking, like, let me listen to some music that is uplifting, and I can sing and laugh. And who can I go out and ask a hug from? Who can I call a friend and say, hey, I just need to hear that you think I'm amazing. I know that sounds arrogant, but I'm really struggling right now. So can you tell me that? Those are all different ways that we can be kinder to ourselves.
And I love that you reframed the number 5, like that is like I'm not being kind to myself. It isn't like, oh, I can't do that. You're choosing to be kind to yourself and take care of yourself. And I think that's a lot of it, for those of us who struggle with addiction is, we can absolutely go do whatever it is that, our problematic behaviors, etc. But is that being kind to ourselves, and is that ultimately going to help? I love that you're talking about, recognizing that we are not being kind to ourselves, So I think, again, that having the ability to identify, oh, that's a harsh voice. That's the judge is usually, coming up for me. That's not useful. And so therefore I can choose something different. I think one of the things that is key to self-compassion is self-care. If you have a routine of self-care, then you have more bandwidth and you're able to see things, and I think my experience is less likely to fall into, the trap of, all of those judging things, because we're more able to see things clearly. And self-care is not something that whether you're a betrayed partner or the person that's been struggling with addiction, those are usually things that aren't our forte. So learning how to do things that are good for us, that are mindful. I love that Troy shared some messaging. Yes, but anything that you can do that is helpful for you in regulating, can be a good starting place. And then we can have the self-compassion. But I also love that you say, what would I tell a good friend, and I was like, I try to be kind to my friends, authentic. But I would not be as cruel to my friends as I can be to myself. And so, paying attention of, would I say that to a friend? No, then I probably shouldn't be saying it to me.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Is there ever a point where an addict's willingness is too late? I've given my part for over 4 years, and I recently discovered that he stopped doing recovery work and omitted this for 8 months. But now that I'm taking a step back, he's activating his work and declaring his willingness again. It feels too late, and it just to get to the starting point will be many, many more years to get to a place where I'll feel safe with him. I've given it 4 years. I'm tired, but feel really good in my healing. So that sounds like a betrayed partner whose addict partner lied for 8 months. So thoughts?
So the question that I um, instantly came up with is too late for what? So and I think I know what you're asking, uh, but let me kind of go down that path. I don't think I mean, unless you're struggling with a drug addiction and it's too late because you overdosed and you died. I don't think there's ever a time where it's too late for a person who's struggling with addiction to finally decide that they want to change, and that they want to work on things. Like I don't feel like it's too late for that. However, you are the betrayed partner, and when we're talking about how many more chances am I going to give this person? Um, how many more opportunities am I going to give myself to be hurt? Am I, is it too late for me to give him another chance? Those are legitimate questions, right? When we talk about the prodependence lens, like there's nothing wrong with wanting to help somebody get better, to support them, and you also get to care for yourself too. And so really the question is how many more chances am I going to give him? I'm going to use him. Um, so you've identified that he lied and he wasn't doing his recovery, and you've put your boundaries in place. You've pulled back, which is a pattern, right? So you pull back and all of a sudden he picks up on that and he's like, oh, I'm going to be better, and all that. And that cycle's probably happened hundreds of times, and you're like, I'm tired, I don't want to do that anymore. So I can't give you the answer about whether what you should do, and you're not really asking that. What I think you're asking is like, at what point do I decide that I'm not going to give him any more chances? And that is different for every person. I think there's a podcast interview about how do you know when it's time to leave that Tammy can talk more about. But it like that it's different for different people. The fact that you've recognized this pattern and you don't want to fall into that pattern again is, I think, commendable for you. And I want you to be able to connect with, I'm worthy of having a relationship with a person who's honest. I'm worthy of having a relationship with a person who is open and humble and is transparent about where they're at. I'm worthy of having a partner where I can do the same with them. And uh, and if that's not what I have right now, am I willing to wait another 6 months? Are we gonna try again, or am I going to say no? I'm done. And there's no judgment with whatever choice you choose, but I can hear the frustration. And I just hope that you're able to continue to get some support for you, especially with other betrayed partners, so you don't feel so alone. We have lots of free resources here at Seeking Integrity for that.
We do. And I think it was this past Monday that Dr. Rob talked about external focus of if our if the willingness is external, like you're mad at me, partner, so therefore, or I got caught, so therefore, versus like I need to do this, like nobody's telling Troy you can't go get a number five. Or he's thinking, oh, somebody's going to be mad at me if I do that. Like he's choosing that for himself. And what real recovery is that we have internalized that, even if it starts external, we got into trouble, we've got some consequences that we don't like, but I hear, you're saying for 4 years, and this last 8 months, there was, more, more. I'm using he and she. She's not paying attention. I'm not going to tell her, but I'm just going to not do these things. We had a series, Should I Stay or Should I Go? We have a bunch of other things too, but that one has been helpful for people. One more thing, Dr. Rob does a one-time 2-hour expert consultation for couples. And when people are kind of in these situations and stuck, that's done via Zoom. He does them with couples all around the world. And that could be something that could help you guys uh, uh, decide what, could be useful for you right now. You can email tami@seekingintegrity.com if you'd like information on that. But nobody can tell you what you need to do. I hear lots of partners. It's usually partners that I'm, talking with, but it's like in their head they're thinking one thing, but their heart is going like, oh, this. And so when that aligns, either way, they have a decision. And if this time he really has it, and yes, you're right, it's still going to take more time for him to be on a real recovery path. Only if you've got the bandwidth to be able to stay and wait and see. But I love that you said, I am doing really good in my healing. That's because regardless of what he does or doesn't do, you can. So the next question: Can shame be formed out of attachment wounds?
Yes, that's usually where shame does come from. So when we experience things like rejection, neglect, abandonment, betrayal, and oftentimes that happens when we're kids, we wonder why. And the conclusion that we often come up with is, well, it's something wrong with me. I'm flawed. I'm defective. I'm bad. That becomes the first genre of the core beliefs that are now tied to my wound. As we continue to grow up and shame becomes a louder part of our life, um, they show up when our attachment wounds are being bumped. Some of my colleagues and I have talked about the how developmentally the shadows show up at different ages on how we're kind of coping with life. But by the time we're grown up, when one of the shadows has shown up, 99.9% of the time it's because one of my wounds has been hit. And that shadow is trying to help me deal with the pain of that wound in a really maladaptive way. So if I can first identify what the wound is, what's the story that I'm telling myself, what are some of the needs that I have, I can then have the conversation with the shadow and say, hey, like I get like you're trying to perfect me and tell me that I'm not enough and I'm not trying hard enough. I know you're doing that because you're afraid that I'm going to be judged and rejected and hurt. But I'm 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 learning how to be kind to myself. I'm learning how to accept me for me. So thank you for trying to do that. But I'm trying a new strategy right now, and I'm getting my needs met in a different way. And when I do that, the shadows are like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll come back later then. You're good. Yeah, I'm good.
And unfortunately, they do come back later.
Always.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. The next question, Troy, is I'm the betrayed. The relationship is still unstable. No official disclosure. Everything discovered by me. My partner has a temper. One of his go-tos is when he's angry with me after I've asked a revealing question, discovered a lie, or expect accountability, is to grab his work computer and go to the car and lock himself in the car. He will do this while simultaneously packing a bag and telling me he's leaving, going to a hotel, etc. I enter panic mode and get very triggered when he goes to take his computer to the car. It's against his own recovery and integrity plan to do this. I end up hyper focused on trying to convince him to not take the computer to the car, and then I feel pathetic. I know I'm paying attention to the wrong thing in this moment. I'm trying to prevent him from taking steps that I we won't be able to come back from. Suggestions on how to shift my anxious behavior in these moments.
Well, I'm so sad that you're going through that. Okay, so your anxiety is coming because you don't feel safe. So one of the things that you're like, I'm in panic mode because he's leaving. I don't know if he's coming back. I don't know what he's going to do. His anger is scary. Like all of those things are pushing your panic button in your brain. Your amygdala is firing off and you're going into fight or flight. And it's really hard in that moment to say, okay, I'm gonna calm myself down and I'm gonna do Zen things like recognize your brain is doing what it was built to do because it's not feeling safe. So part of that is being able to figure out what you're going to do beforehand, and start to put some things in place so that if it happens, you already have the plan and you've been practicing it in your mind so that your brain already knows, well, this is what I can do. Instead of like the panicky, I'm powerless, like I don't know, I'm focusing on the wrong thing. Well, what am I going to focus on? So the fact that you're bringing this up tells me that you're able to do that, right? So, and hopefully maybe you have a therapist or a coach or somebody who can help put some safety plan together of what do I do when this happens? Like, what are my strategies? How can I keep myself safe? And so the direction is less on what can I do about him and his behavior. It's more what am I going to do about me and my behavior and and if you have kiddos in the home, like what am I going to do with them? Like how am I going to keep myself safe? So you may want to Google like a safety plan. It's not unlike somebody who's in a domestic violence situation, even though he may not be threatening you, but it's like safety plan for a domestic violence situation. It's more like what is my plan that I'm going to put in place so that when this happens again, hopefully it doesn't, but when it does, I know what I'm going to do. So I'm not, I feel sad. Hopefully he is going to a therapist and getting some help because that kind of behavior is super scary, and it creates a whole the foundation in the home is not safe. And then I would imagine, if I'm guessing right, he then goes into shame later. He says, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that," and this cycle happens over and over again, um, which creates more this unsafety for you. So, what is your plan? Can you talk to someone to help you formulate that so that you know what you can do? Um, and so I'm going to hold on to my plan. I'm not going to hold on to what he is or isn't doing.
And I love that you talked about practicing. I put Debbie McCrae has talked about having a emergency kit, and she helps her partners have one like in their purse, have and one in the car, one in like everywhere that you're going to be, and and practice this. And if it's like texting your therapist or coach, calling a friend, we practice and say, I'm calling you, this is my practice, to lay out, tell us what the plan is, and I thought it was interesting because he said, when he's angry with me because you've called him on his, on his behaviors, so So to me, that is, blaming you for probably shame he got caught, like, but he's done these things and now he got caught. So, but he's again externalizing, you aren't the problem. His behaviors were the problem. And what I don't hear is him taking responsibility and going like, wow, yeah, my behaviors were a problem. I'm going to own that and do the work. I just talked a little bit ago about the externalized motivation, and I do not know a partner yet who has made their addict, not act out. I've never been able to get anybody to do
Ever?
anything. There might be a unicorn out there, but like, this is so painful, and I call this the negative two step. You do this, I do this. You do this, I do this, and we're gonna wear out. We're gonna wear out the floor, but this pattern can continue for years or decades. And so, one of you changing the choreography, what would it look like? Like, visualize, what would it look like if I just went, okay, he's going to do what he's going to do. He's upset because he got caught. And I'm going to take care of me regardless of what he's doing. I know I'm going to be anxious. I'm going to do grounding things. I'm going to do my breathing. I'm going to do my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 visualizing. I'm going to put my feet on the ground. I'm going to phone a friend. Have a list of things and go through the list, where that's the first thing you do. No, first thing, take a deep breath and go, here it is. It's happening. I have a plan. That's honestly, Dr. Eddie talks about slow everything down, because that automatic reaction is probably not going to serve us the best. So you're not alone. I did put the work groups. We've got work groups for partners, healthy boundaries, and the betrayed partner group. They'll both be starting again in January. Those would be super helpful, and you'd have support. I'm subbing today on the drop-in group for betrayed partners. Join, get some names of people so that you've got contacts so that you can reach out to them in those moments. This will happen again. Like, this will happen again. So what are you going to do so that you're not doing the same dance? So. Okay. Sex addicts in recovery. How do the shadows of shame compare with John Lee's ideas of regression to child and being an adult?
So John Lee talks about how when we are triggered, um, we will revert back to acting like a kid again in different ways. So we drop into a younger developmental state. So the nervous system takes us back to usually where maybe we were that wounds of rejection or abandonment, and then we respond from that. And I will be the first to say I totally did that. Like, especially before I had vocabulary to describe what was going on with me. And my rejection wound was being hit by my partner, or my abandonment wound. Like, I would act like a little kid, throw fits, tantrums, panic, which she did not find very romantic at all. Like, so, um, so his idea is that we regress to that, and part of being able to mature as adults is to be able to learn how to deal with those trauma responses in a healthier way. The shadows, like I said earlier, and I need to do more research around that or look into it a little bit more. But the shadows are developmental coping strategies that show up in our lives just because of the world we live in. For example, for most people that I've worked with, the judge shows up around 7 or 8 years old when we start to have the capacity of this knowing what's right and wrong. So at the time when I'm 8 and 9, the judge is helping me know like that's wrong and this is better choice and that kind of stuff. But then what it does is as I grow up, the judge is still has the 8 or 9 year old mentality, and then it will attack me. You're bad because you did that. You shouldn't have done that. And the whole point is it's really wanting me to get rewarded or be perfect so that I won't be rejected again. So when, so to kind of marry the two, when I shake hands with the judge and say, yes, I agree with you, I'm going to behave in a way that's not adult like. I'm going to regress into old patterns. But once I can connect and say, hey, judge, like, that's not okay. Like, what you're doing is not okay. And I've learned some tools. I'm going to act in a mature way and not from a shame based way. So, in a nutshell, like, hopefully that answers that question.
Well, it's interesting too that you talk about like 8 or 9 years old, and I was like, oh, I can see how that would, like play out. So interesting. Okay, betrayed partner here. D-Day was in March, April of this year. I've long experienced myself as self-aware, strong, resilient, and have done decades of therapeutic transformation, meditation, etc. The D-Day hit like a Mack truck out of nowhere, and my disbelief is overwhelming still. How could I have not seen this in his behavior? And the best I can get was that I let it be okay that my needs were not being met. He's a severe intimacy anorexic, and it got worse over the last decade. Question: I am realizing that I have an unconscious belief that needs are negotiable to be traded for security. So, what is a need? Can you help me understand what makes a need a real thing versus nice to have? That's a huge awareness and interesting question. So,
So let me break it down a couple of things. The reason why you didn't see it is because he was really good at hiding it, even from himself, right? So I know that I know that some of the shadows will want to show up and say, "Why didn't you see this? You should have seen this. Like, didn't you notice the signs?" Well, no, no, I didn't. So I did. Okay. Um, I love that you have done a lot of work, and I want you to be able to connect with. I am still a self-aware, strong, resilient woman. I'm assuming woman who's done decades of transformational work and meditation. I'm still that person. So I don't want your shadows to discount any of that, which is what they will do. They there's a sneaky thing they do where they try to get you to like take ownership for their behavior, and that's not yours to do. But your second part of that question is what are needs and what are wants, right? So this is a list that I've came up with what I believe are our core needs, and ironically, safety is one of those. So these are non-negotiable, uh, and the dilemma is if I don't get them met in a healthy way, then I'm going to find a maladaptive way to get them met. So all of these are non-negotiable needs. I need to feel accepted. I need to have people pay attention to me and have presence in my life. I need assurance. I need to have the ability to make my own choices. I need to have opportunities to grow and contribute in the world. I need to feel safe and secure in my life, and I need to have fun and enjoy pleasure. Those are all non-negotiable. How you get them met is an individual thing, right? And because you've done a lot of work, you can do that. You noticed now that you're kind of looking back, hindsight being 2020, you notice that there's some signs, especially in the bedroom around the intimacy issues, and it wasn't getting any better. And shame, whatever, convinced you like we're just going to be all right with that. But now you're looking at that and saying, no, I'm actually not all right with that. I was never all right with that, but I maybe lulled myself into some sense of comfort that it maybe was not that big of a deal. And now you're having an awakening. And so that then puts you in a position where you have choices to make. I think what happens when we get lulled into a place of security, on false security, is I don't have to make choices. I can ignore things. I don't have to confront things. I don't have to do anything. But now it's right in your face, and you're like, I guess I'm going to have to do this. And so now you're faced with a choice, and you're leaning in, and sounds like you have what it takes to be able to figure out what's right for you. Um, you're not alone, but all of these are non-negotiable, and it's okay to say that and believe that.
Thanks for sharing that. And I did put earlier the work groups, including the healthy boundaries work group for partners. It'll start again in January. And that is a really good place to identify these are my needs and this is my boundary, including internal boundaries. Because I think it's really quick for us to ignore our internal boundaries. So putting that in place can be and having support to do so can be really helpful. Okay. Betrayed 1.5 years since D-Day, still in a relationship. My relationship with my parents is healthier than decades ago because we've done our own work, but I'm enmeshed with my parents, I think. They've been my only constants, the only people I've been able to consistently trust, the only people I've experienced unconditional love from. I'm terrified the day that comes that they are no longer on this earth because selfishly, I feel like I'll have no one, that my existence, truth, and identity end when they're gone. How do I value relationship we have without it feeling like I'm completely alone without them? Almost every romantic partner has either cheated or been abusive. Friends have been fleeting as I have moved around a lot. And at this point, I'm very isolated for various reasons.
So let's take a look at the attachment wounds. You've been uh, abused, so you have an abuse wound. You've been betrayed. You've been abandoned. You've been rejected. Probably been neglected, and two people in your life who've really held space for you are your parents, and you're really afraid of that wound when it happens, and unfortunately, it will one day, right? So you've gone through a lot of pain, and I tell people it's not the wounds though that causes suffering; it's what we've come to believe about ourselves. So what ends up happening is that as these wounds keep being hit, we'll turn it into different genres of beliefs. One of those being I'm not enough. There's something wrong with me. I can't. Uh, I can't turn to others. Nobody's going to be there for me. I'm powerless. And I don't know what your relationship's like with your parents, but what I'm hearing that they've done is validate that you are enough. They've shown up for you, and they have been people that you could trust. They've believed in you, and they've helped you at least connect in that moment that you're a good person. So it's beautiful that you have that support. And the fear is, well, once they're gone, I have nothing. It's a legitimate fear, and there's some sadness around it. So that's where this powerlessness comes in, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I live in a rural place, and I don't have a lot of friends, and I'm scared to make friends because my patterns have been that people are not gonna stick around. And I'm I'm with you. Like I live in a really rural area, and I stopped counting the number of friends that I've made who then moved away after like 120. And that's not an exaggeration. Like
Mhm.
I counted because I live in a really transient area. Like it's hard, and it made it harder to want to make another friend because they're probably going to leave again. Like, but all of that is based on these core beliefs that I have. And so doing some work around, well, is that true? Who can I reach out to? Are there people that I can lean on in addition to my parents? What can I do to take the lessons and the learning that my parents have shared and take it with me so that it's still a part of my life when they pass. Like they may not be there physically, but I can still take them with me. So these are these are beautiful questions that you're asking. Technology has made it a little easier. It's not like perfect, but a little easier to connect with people across the world. So you may want to join a drop-in group, or you may want to look on and see if there's like a community event that you could be a part of where you can just kind of put your toe in the water and see what else can I do to surround myself with connection.
And to your point with the drop-in groups, I hear often about how the people have connected and the people that are in those drop-in groups, they're the ones that somebody could call at 2 o'clock in the morning. They are, one person shared at one point, like there are the people here, there's a number of them that they consider to be the people that have, helped them, go through all of this. So yeah, I mean, you've been betrayed and you're not alone. So the more you're able to lean in, and again, join the online work group when it starts. I mean, sign up now. It starts again in January. Okay, for me, the royal, the rebel, and politician are more protective ways of addressing shame compared to the martyr, the impotent one, and the judge, which are self-critical. Does that mean there are different ways of addressing one from the other?
Well, yes. I was having a conversation. Uh, who's the lady that wrote Codependent No More?
Claudia, uh,
No, she was at
P,
the Meadows.
yeah, Pia Melody.
That way. hmm
Okay.
So she has a concept about grandiosity and shame. And so me and my colleague were having a conversation about that. Grandiosity is that I feel like I'm bigger and better than you. I'm more powerful than you, and then shame is that I'm not. And we had a conversation, and she sees them as shame being different than grandiosity. With the shadows of shame, the royal and the rebel in particular do have a sense of grandiosity in them. So they're not shame based like the others are because they're not telling you that you're bad. What they are doing is they're telling you that other people are bad. So they shame other people. They don't shame you. So there's this, but they still are part of the six shadows of shame because they unravel connection. When I listen to them, it's going to destroy my relationships with others. And I'm still using shame. It's just not directed at me. I'm using shame on other people. So when we look at what they're doing, like the royal says, well, you're better than everybody else. I will have a conversation. I'm like, no, I'm not better than everybody else. I matter just as much as other people. I'm not better than my partner. I matter just as much as my partner. Uh, my royal would want to point out all the nitty gritty things that my partner does. Well, that's not going to be helpful. My judge will want to point out all the nitty gritty things that I do, right? So judge is at me, royals at somebody else. So being able to understand what they're doing and how they work gives us some tools to have dialogue with them. Like, well, what is the motivation that you have for me? Politician, don't tell anybody. You got to keep this a secret. Well, why? Because if anybody finds out, they're going to hate you. They're going to judge you. Royal, you need to act like you have everything all together and to put everybody else down. Why? Well, because I'm actually feeling insecure in myself and I don't feel enough. So I'm using that to kind of leverage myself. So then underneath that, well, what is actually true? I'm enough. I matter. I don't have to be perfect. I'm valuable, and so is everyone else. And let me figure out how to build relationships that are healthy.
So do you have time for two more?
Yeah.
Okay. Tips for betrayed partner to rebuild trust with themselves and metabolize grief and emotions versus bypassing them.
And then the second one, is
It's a
that
different person. So
um,
yeah, and I did so I did type in because there was another part on that, and I did type in Debbie McRae's and Kristen Snowden's are very practical, useful how-tos for partners to start trusting their inner voice again, and and because it is. If you've been told all along that everything, like the earlier question, it's your fault. I'm angry at you because you're bringing this up. I'm not angry at myself for having done those things. I'm angry at you. Like all of those things, if you're feeling the niggle in your gut of like, this doesn't, like something's going on, pay attention. Debbie McCrae, I love that she shares like even if there isn't evidence, if you are sensing that, she's talked about like, the story I'm telling myself is, and she goes on with that. But like, so it isn't like you have to have documentation, you have to spend all of the time doing that. So there's a ton of videos on our site, from Debbie and Kristen in particular, but lots of other good ones, that can help you, hone in on practical things to do to help. So, but
Okay.
what else would you
Yeah.
like to add?
I'm gonna post an article that I just wrote a couple of weeks ago. But
Okay,
um, one of the things, and I love how you're saying metabolize grief. So one of the things that is helpful for betrayed partners to do is to focus on their wounds more than on their partner's behavior. Like, I don't want you to ignore their behavior. Like, I'm not
right.
trying to tell you put your head in the sand. Um, what I'm saying is I need to be able to work on my wounds. And what I noticed that a lot of betrayed partners do in their pain and their anxiety is they end up focusing on all the things about what the betrayer is or is not doing. They're not doing their program enough. They're not trying hard enough. They're not doing, and all of that then is a defense mechanism, so I don't have to deal with my stuff. So the way that you identified, like, yeah, I'm going to actually sit in my emotions, and I'm going to give myself permission to be angry, and I'm going to journal about that, and I'm probably going to go punch a pillow about that, and I'm going to call a friend and talk about that, and I'm going to be able to express my sadness, and I'm going to cry, and I'm going to journal about that, and I'm going to have a sad song playlist and all that stuff. I'm going to do that for me, um, and I'm going to care for me, and you hopefully will do what you're going to do and be in recovery and demonstrate that I can trust you eventually one day again. I'm going to monitor your behavior and notice whether you are being a person of an integrity and following through with what you say you're going to do and all that. And I'm going to also stay over here and work on in my heart, and I'm going to give myself space to heal. I'm going to cry with other people. And that's, I think, how we heal that. So you're the words of metabolizing is like beautiful. That's what we're doing.
And then the last one, I'm the betrayed. 2 years with no official disclosure, lots of trickles. What is your take on formal therapeutic disclosure?
Do it the right way. Um, I laugh, but there 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 are some proven ways or researched ways to do it well, and then there's a lot of ways to not do it well. But there are a couple of questions. First, how much do you want to know? Like, do you want to know? And second is how willing is your partner to do one? Um, so if you really want to know and your partner is not willing to do one, then we're stuck. If you don't really want to know and your partner doesn't want to do one, well, that's fine. But you still need to do some things to protect yourself because what you don't know could kill you. So it's there's nothing that says you have to do one. But even when I have guys who the wife doesn't want one, I still have them do one with the guys in group. I still have them do a an accountability statement of what they've done, whether the wife wants to hear it or not. That's up to her, and I honor that. But they still need to do one because they're lying. They've been lying. That's even to themselves. So putting it all on paper gives us an opportunity to really take a look at, wow, this is some serious stuff. So I think it's helpful. Uh, and um, the relationships that I've seen have improved the most is when therapeutic disclosure was done well with trained people. There's been support for both partners. Both partners have been doing their work, and the person who's struggling with the addiction has been able to step into their honesty and they've engaged in recovery principles and they've rebuilt trust, that's when I've seen it really effective. Um, I've seen it go really bad though, too, especially when it's not done right.
And so Dr. Rob offers a peer case consultation group for professionals that do this work. That's every week. And the most talked about topic on that is formal therapeutic disclosure. So this is not a do-it-yourself thing. The trickle ones are the most painful for partners, and I'm so, so sorry. My curiosity is the betraying partner actually, in recovery? Is that person doing the work, or is it just, limping along? So for someone who's setting a solid foundation for recovery, I love what Troy said. Even if the partner doesn't want to hear it, the addict partner needs to do it. I think that's the fourth step is, a version of, accountability. So doing that work helps us identify and also is relapse prevention because we're reminded of this is what we were doing before we got on a different journey. So, but for you, I always say, what is the goal of the relationship? Like being in that in between, it's a horrible place for both of you. And so what do you need to do to take care of yourself? Some partners go, I need a formal therapeutic disclosure, and this is the timeline. And so 2 years is Dr. Rob, cringes when he hears those kind of times. That's a horrible place for a partner. So what is it you need in order to be able to move forward, whatever direction you're going? So, okay. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks, Troy. I hope you have a
You,
good Thanksgiving.
you
So,
too.
yes, and I'll look forward to, I pulled up your picture on your website. Time to replace that picture.
I know, right?
I know. All right.
All
Talk
right.
to you later.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.
Bye.